Hi guys, it's Jen back with Family Finance Success. At Family Finance Success, my hope is that we can offer you a fun, focused, and practical approach to master your family and finances. Today I want to help you give your budget a refresher. So these are going to be 6 things that we have talked about in detail previously, but things that you kind of need reminded about because we forget and we get lazy or we get complacent and we just don't do it. So today it's going to be 6 quick tips on how to give your budget a little refresh, how to refresh maybe yourself to get back into budgeting. And my very first tip is actually to stop calling it a budget. Call it a spending plan. Whenever somebody hears the word budget, all of a sudden they're like fists clench and their face drains and there's fear and anxiety and restriction and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got to go on a budget. I don't want to. But just don't call it a budget. And mentally and psychologically, this works. Even though you really know that you're still doing the exact same thing by calling it a spending plan, there's something about using the word spending attached to creating this list of expenses that just makes the idea and the actions flow a little easier. So number 1, just call it a spending plan. Say to your husband or your wife, you know what, it's time that we go back to our spending plan. And they're like, what's a spending plan? Well, it's where we decide where our money goes. And we just list that out and we put some dollar figures with it. And they're like, well, that sounds like a budget. And you're like, well, yeah, it's like that, but it's a spending plan. So we're going to figure out how that happens. And you're going to see a little bit more motivation to actually do that instead of create the B word. Okay, tip number 2, and I kind of touched on it right there when I talked about the spending plan, was that if there are 2 people in your household, if there's a husband and a wife, then you need to involve 2 people. There cannot be one person in charge, solely in charge of finances. Now, there may be one person who is more comfortable creating the spending plan, but there needs to be a consensus on the money amounts that go with the spending plan. There needs to be a willingness to stick to the spending plan. And if you do not have that, if you are not involving one of the spouses, then you need to just stop and figure out how to get on the same track with that. And that can be really hard and it can be very challenging to kind of open up this line of communication if it hasn't been there, but it has to happen, because my favorite example is that, there's 2 people who want the same thing, but they never know. And they're taking these 2 different routes, when if they would have just came together at the very beginning to get to the same point, it would have been there a lot faster. Now, sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes the spouse doesn't want the same thing as the other spouse, and they are kind of being resistant to going in together. And if that's the case, then you guys have to find the common ground. And I always suggest starting at one small financial goal. And if you're not setting financial goals, then maybe you need to come together and try to start one. And I hear this a lot. Well, you know what? We have separate bank accounts, we pay separate bills, and we like it that way. Well, here's my question. If you married this person that you just don't feel comfortable combining your money with, why did you marry them? I never distrust my husband with our money, because I feel like distrusting my husband with money, I'm just distrusting him with everything. So if you really don't trust your spouse with money, then you need to really go back. Why did we get married? And if there's an issue that they have, maybe there is a spending problem, then you need to be the encouragement and support to get them the help that they need. There shouldn't be this, well, you know what? This easy solution is to just keep these 2 separate bank accounts, but you're never helping them improve. And if you really don't trust them, then you need to kind of do a little bit more than financial, coaching. You need to get some marriage coaching in there. And I'm sorry that that's blunt. It's really not like me to be so blunt, but that's just something I've heard a lot from couples that I coach. We have this separate bank account, and you know what? You need to be joining them together. And of course, there's always risks involved. You never really truly know. But if you really feel like that is an issue, then you've got to do a little bit more digging, asking whys and hows. Okay, number 3, make sure that you are using the zero budget approach to planning, the spending plan. And basically, the zero budget approach is where you actually have zero at the end of the week or at the end of the month or at the end of the day. And the reason for this is because you're also planning in that spending plan to save, to give for unexpected things. So you really don't want to have any residual income that isn't planned for, because when that happens, that's when you kind of get loosey-goosey and start saying, well, I've got this extra, so that means that I can buy this or I can go on this vacation. We want to make sure that every single dollar is spoken for, because that gives you the most control. I absolutely have a video or 2 maybe on how to plan for a zero budget spending plan, and I will link those in the comments below. Now, step number 4 is to remember to plan for the unexpected. This is where most people fall into trouble, is that they plan really well for their general everyday expenses, their groceries, they plan for their bills, and they plan for, birthdays and such. But they forget to plan for just unexpected mishaps, for fundraisers, for the, Boy Scouts knocking on your door, or the Girl Scouts coming up and saying, would you buy some of my delicious cookies? Yes, I will. I will buy them all, but I don't really have the money, so maybe just $1. So you have to plan for the unexpected. And a lot of people are like, well, it's not unexpected if you plan for it. Well, trust me, you'll never plan enough for the unexpected. And in our life, it's literally one thing after another. Step number 5 is to really, really evaluate what you're spending. This is something people tend to not want to do. And this doesn't mean just like what you're spending, but if you're paying it down credit cards, every year evaluate, can you call like a credit card company and get a lower interest rate? Evaluate your life insurance policies, evaluate the bank savings plan. Maybe you have enough money in there to upgrade your savings plan to get a better interest rate. You want to take a detailed look at not only what you're spending, but really where your money is actually at and held. It doesn't have to be done in all one sitting. Maybe every month you just tackle one thing, but reviewing your cable bill, if you have cable, reviewing your electric bill, making sure there's no weird charges. If you have medical bills, making sure that the medical bills, you're not being charged some outrageous number because the hospital accidentally put you down as Tom instead of Jim. You have to really evaluate these things, or you may be paying things that you don't even have to pay. And number 6 is going to be track your spending. And that is just basically because a lot of people blow their money, they don't know where it's going, and they go to create the spending plan and they're like, wow, I bought like 7 latte frappuccino mochaccino. I don't even know. I don't buy Starbucks, but they're like, I bought like for $70 because not only did I visit breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but then on Saturday I bought it for Dom down the street and Joe. Yeah, all of these surprises kind of come up if you're not tracking what you're spending. The last thing that I want to tell you about your spending refresher is that don't be afraid to give. This has been a topic on my heart lately. I am a giver naturally with my time, my talents, but I've not always been a giver with my finances because I felt that it wasn't the right time. And God has just been placing on my heart that there's never a good time to give, just like there's never a good time to save. So if I am coaching people to save $1 when they only have 10, then I should also be coaching myself to save $1 and to give $1 when I only have 10. So make sure that you are in your spending plan creating a line budget where you just give. This is a controversial topic. Some people are like, absolutely not. You know what? It's like I've got to take care of myself and my family before I am giving. And some of the greatest financial moments we've had in our life has actually been when we give money. There's always been enough money to make sure that I've gave the money that I felt led to give, and I've been provided for. And it's not always financially that I'm provided for. Sometimes it's just the, random, hey, you want to come over for dinner? And you know what? That takes a night out that I don't have to make dinner, which means that I don't have to use money and resources of my house, and I come over for dinner. So you have to look for those things in your budget also when it comes to giving. I would love for you to go over to Family Finance Success and print this 6-step budget refresher out. There's going to be a little bit more detail over there, and I would love for you to sit down with your spouse and get on this. So that way for 2017, you are ready to go. You're primed, you've got everything in order, and you're like, 2018 is going to be the best financial year of my life. And if you run into a lot of struggles or a lot of difficulties, I'd love for you to reach out to me. I offer financial coaching and financial goal setting as a service now, and it's something that I've seen a lot of my clients have success when they bring in another person. And I don't mean to bring in another person to blame everything on, but I mean bringing in a person that can help mediate between one spouse to another, and also come in that has a little bit more knowledge about the financial world and that can really make things happen. So guys, I will see you next week, and I really hope that you enjoyed this budget refresher. Bye.